Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the massive excavation tools peer into the asteroid's surface.
We know it didn't cost him
3
another
weeks had passed
1,000
since
credits.
he won the auction,
Marcus's
and his savings
expensive
account
hole
showed
in
the painful
space.
reality of his gambling. Every day of excavation cost him another 1,000 credits, and his partner Jake had already started making jokes about Marcus's expensive hole in space.
We've got metal, boss!
The asteroid designated Delta 7739 floated in the outer rim of the Kepler belt, far from the busy shipping lanes and mining operations that made this sector profitable. It was exactly the kind of forgotten rock where someone might dump industrial waste or abandon broken machinery. At least, that's what Marcus had hoped when he placed his bid. "Contact," shouted Elena Rodriguez, his lead excavation supervisor, through the comm system. "We've got metal, boss. Lots of it." Marcus grabbed his helmet and pushed off from the command module, floating down toward the excavation site. The asteroid's weak gravity barely registered as his boots touched the surface. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The excavation drones had uncovered a smooth, curved surface that stretched beyond the reach of their floodlights. It wasn't the jagged scrap metal he'd expected. This was something manufactured, something designed. The surface was a deep blue-black color that seemed to absorb light, and it was completely unmarked by the eons of space debris that should have scarred it. "Elena, how big is this thing?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "Scanners show it extends at least 2 kilometers in length, maybe more." "The width, boss, I think we found ourselves a ship." "A big one." Jake's voice crackled through the comm from the command module. "Ships don't get buried in asteroids, Marcus. Ships get scrapped or they drift. They don't get buried." But Marcus was already suiting up for a closer look. As the excavation continued over the next several hours, more of the vessel emerged from its rocky tomb. The design was unlike anything he'd seen before. It wasn't the angular, utilitarian style of human engineering, nor did it match the organic curves favored by the Zephyrian builders. The alien ships they occasionally salvaged had their own distinctive characteristics, but this was different. This was elegant and purposeful in a way that spoke of advanced technology. "I'm reading massive energy signatures," Elena reported as they cleared more debris from what appeared to be the ship's hull. "Whatever this thing is, it's not dead. There's power running through it." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Active ships meant living crews, and living crews meant complications he wasn't prepared for. But, as they uncovered more of the vessel, something nagged at him. There was something familiar about the proportions, something that reminded him of the old Earth ships he'd studied in history class. "Elena, run a comparison scan. Check this against the database of known ship designs." "Already on it, boss. Running through Terran, Zephyrian, Korthak, and wait. What the hell? What is it?" "The computer's flagging this as a Terran design, but that's impossible. The materials analysis shows this ship is at least 40,000 years old. Humans have only been in space for 3 centuries. Marcus stared at the growing expanse of hull as more sediment was cleared away. 40,000 years. That predated not just human space travel, but human civilization itself. According to every history book, every archaeological record, humans had been primitive hunter-gatherers 40,000 years ago. "Keep digging," he ordered. "I want to see the whole thing." As the hours passed, the true scope of their discovery became clear. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a modern battlecruiser, but built with technology that made their current excavation equipment look primitive. The hull was composed of materials that their scanners couldn't identify, materials that had somehow survived intact for millennia in the harsh environment of space. More puzzling were the design elements that kept emerging. A section that looked suspiciously like a docking bay. Weapon ports that followed the same configuration principles used by the Terran Defense Force. And symbols etched into the hull near what appeared to be an airlock, symbols that made Marcus's blood run cold. They were human letters. Ancient, stylized, but unmistakably human. "Elena, are you seeing this?" "I'm seeing it, boss, but I'm not believing it. These are Terran markings. The ship's name, can you make it out?" Marcus floated closer to the hull, his helmet lights illuminating the carved symbols. The text was weathered but readable: TDS Prometheus Deep Exploration Vessel, Terran Colonial Authority. The Terran Colonial Authority. An organization that, according to history, wouldn't exist for another 37,000 years after this ship was supposedly built. Jake, Marcus called to the command module. I need you to run a deep scan of our navigation computers. Check our position, check the dating systems, check everything. Marcus, what's going on down there? Just do it. And, Jake? Send a message to Dr. Sarah Kim at the Xenoarchaeology Institute. Tell her we need her here immediately. Dr. Kim arrived 3 days later aboard her research vessel, bringing with her a team of specialists and equipment that made Marcus's salvage operation look like a children's toy box. She was a small, intense woman in her 50s who had made her reputation studying alien artifacts, but what she found on Delta 7739 challenged everything she thought she knew about human history. The dating is confirmed, she announced after 2 days of intensive scans. This ship was built approximately 52,000 years ago, give or take a few centuries. The materials are unlike anything in our current technology database, but the quantum signatures are definitely human. How is that possible? Marcus asked. He'd been living on stimulants and adrenaline since the discovery, and the implications were making his head spin. I have several theories, none of them pleasant, Dr. Kim replied. Either our understanding of human history is completely wrong, or this ship represents evidence of time travel, or we're looking at proof of a human civilization that was destroyed so completely that no trace of it survived on Earth. Elena looked up from her scanner readings. There's another possibility, document. What if humans didn't originate on Earth? Dr. Kim nodded grimly. I was hoping no one would suggest that. But, yes, it's possible. This could be evidence that Earth was a colony world, not humanity's birthplace. The team worked for another week, carefully excavating around the ship and mapping its exterior. The vessel was in remarkable condition, as if the asteroid had formed around it deliberately to preserve it. But, more disturbing were the other things they found. Scattered around the ship, buried in the same sediment layer, were the remains of other vessels. Alien ships, dozens of them, all showing signs of massive damage. Blast marks, hull breaches, and debris patterns that told the story of a tremendous battle. It looks like the Prometheus was involved in some kind of conflict, Dr. Kim observed as they catalogued the wreckage. A big one. These alien ships are from at least 12 different species, some of which we've never seen before. Any idea who won? Jake asked. Dr. Kim pointed to the intact human ship surrounded by alien wreckage. I think it's pretty obvious. But the most significant discovery came when they finally located the ship's main airlock. The massive doors were sealed, but their scanners detected atmosphere beyond them. After 50,000 years, the Prometheus still had a breathable environment inside. I'm reading life signs, Elena reported, her voice barely above a whisper. Faint, but definitely there. Something's alive in there. Marcus stared at the airlock, weighing the risks. Opening an unknown alien vessel was dangerous under the best circumstances. Opening a 50,000-year-old human ship that shouldn't exist was beyond dangerous. But the alternative was walking away from the greatest discovery in human history. Elena, prep the entry protocols. Full containment suits, armed escort, the works. We're going in. As the team prepared for entry, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to cross a line they couldn't uncross. Whatever was inside the Prometheus had been waiting for 50,000 years. The question was whether it had been waiting for rescue, or for revenge. Dr. Kim joined him at the airlock as the final preparations were made. Marcus, before we go in there, I need to ask you something. When you bought this asteroid at auction, did you check the previous ownership records? Of course. It was listed as unclaimed salvage, found drifting in deep space by an automated survey probe. I ran my own check. The probe that found this asteroid was launched from Earth orbit. It was part of a deep space archaeological survey commissioned by the Terran Historical Society. They weren't looking for random salvage, Marcus. They were looking for this ship. Marcus felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. Are you saying someone knew this was here? I'm saying someone has known about this ship for a very long time. And I think they wanted it found. The question is why, and why now? The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing atmosphere, and Marcus Chen stepped across the threshold into 50,000 years of human history. Whatever answers lay inside the Prometheus, he was about to find them. But, as the ancient corridors stretched out before him, lit by lights that had somehow continued to function for millennia, he couldn't help but wonder if some questions were better left unasked. The interior of the Prometheus defied everything Marcus thought he knew about ancient technology. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, with walls that seemed to be made from a single piece of seamless material that glowed with a soft, ambient light. The air was clean and breathable, recycled by systems that had somehow continued functioning for 50 millennia. The architecture is definitely human, Dr. Kim observed as they made their way through the ship's main corridor. The proportions, the layout, even the color scheme. It all follows human psychological comfort zones. Elena's scanner beeped steadily as she tracked the life signs deeper into the vessel. The signals are getting stronger. Whatever's alive in here, it's located in the central section of the ship. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the corridor, as if the walls were designed to carry sound in specific ways. Marcus noticed that despite the ship's age, there was no dust, no debris, no signs of decay. Everything looked as if the crew had just stepped out for a moment. Jake, are you getting all this? Marcus spoke into his comm unit. Copy that, boss. The external sensors are picking up massive energy fluctuations from inside the ship. Whatever's powering this thing, it's beyond anything we've got. As they progressed deeper into the vessel, they began to encounter rooms and sections that revealed more about the ship's original mission. A vast laboratory filled with equipment that hummed with quiet purpose. Living quarters designed for a crew of hundreds. And weapons bays that made Marcus's blood run cold. Dr. Kim, look at this, Elena called from across a large chamber they'd entered. These weapons. I've never seen anything like them. The chamber was clearly an armory, lined with weapons that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie rather than human history. Energy weapons with crystalline power cores, projectile weapons that fired rounds the size of small missiles, and defensive gear that seemed to incorporate technology decades ahead of anything in the current Terran arsenal. The power signatures on these weapons are incredible, Dr. Kim noted as she scanned one of the devices. They're using some kind of quantum field manipulation that we haven't even theorized yet. But it was the next chamber that truly shook them. They entered what appeared to be a command center, with stations arranged around a central holographic display. As they approached, the display activated automatically, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Only it wasn't the galaxy they knew. The star positions are wrong, Elena whispered. This map shows stellar configurations from about 50,000 years ago. The display zoomed in on a section of space, highlighting dozens of star systems with different colored markers. Blue markers appeared to indicate human colonies, while red markers showed what looked like hostile territories. But what caught Marcus's attention were the vast swaths of space marked in black. Dead zones, Dr. Kim breathed. Entire sectors marked as uninhabitable. Look at the scale of it. The map showed a galaxy at war. Human colonies scattered across hundreds of systems, locked in conflict with multiple alien species. But the most disturbing detail was Earth's marker. It wasn't blue like the other human colonies. It was yellow, marked with symbols that translated as Sanctuary Protocol Emergency Colonization. Earth was a backup plan, Marcus realized. Humanity didn't evolve on Earth. They fled there. A new voice filled the command center, calm and measured, speaking in accented English that sounded both familiar and ancient. That is correct. Earth was designated as a refuge world when the primary colonies fell. The team spun around, weapons drawn, to see a figure materializing from what had appeared to be an empty corner of the room. It was human, or had once been human. The figure was tall and lean, wearing a uniform that matched the ship's aesthetic, but there was something not quite right about him. His skin had a translucent quality,
and his eyes glowed with a faint inner light.
Please, do not be alarmed, the figure said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture.
I am Commander David Torres, commanding officer of the TDS Prometheus. I have been waiting a very long time for someone to find us.
That's impossible, Elena stammered. You can't be 50,000 years old.
You are correct.
I am not alive in the traditional sense. I am what you might call a quantum consciousness imprint, preserved in the ship's neural network until such time as my people were ready to hear what I have to tell them.
Dr.
Kim stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear.
A consciousness transfer.
We've theorized about such technology, but the power requirements alone
would be staggering by your current standards. Yes, Commander Torres agreed. But we had advantages you do not. We had time to prepare, and we had allies.
The holographic display changed, showing images of alien species that were clearly not hostile. These beings appeared to be working alongside humans, sharing technology and resources.
The galaxy was not always at war, Torres continued.
For nearly 10,000 years, humanity was part of a grand alliance of species. We shared knowledge, explored new worlds together, and pushed the boundaries of science and philosophy.
We called it the cooperative. What happened? Marcus asked. Torres' expression darkened. The devourers came.
The display shifted again, showing images that made the salvage crew step back in horror. Massive, organic ships that looked more grown than built. Creatures that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. And, behind them, the systematic destruction of entire worlds. They appeared at the edge of the galaxy approximately 55,000 years ago, Torres explained.
At first, we thought they were simply another species seeking territory or resources. We attempted to communicate, to negotiate.
The devourers had no interest in communication. They consumed everything in their path.
Planets, stars, entire civilizations.
They fed on the quantum energy that binds matter together, leaving nothing but empty space behind.
How did you fight something like that? Elena asked. With great difficulty and enormous sacrifice.
The cooperative pooled all of our resources, all of our knowledge, to develop weapons and defenses capable of harming the devourers. The Prometheus is one of the last ships built specifically to hunt them. The commander gestured to the walls around them.
This vessel incorporates technology from 17 different species.
The hull material comes from beings who existed partially in subspace. The weapons were designed by a species that manipulated fundamental forces as easily as you manipulate electromagnetic fields.
And the navigation systems were created by entities that existed outside of linear time.
But you stopped them, Dr. Kim said.
The galaxy still exists.
We did stop them, but the cost was beyond calculation.
Entire species were lost.
Billions of worlds were sterilized.
The cooperative itself was destroyed by the effort.
In the end, only a handful of human colonies survived, scattered across the galaxy's edge. Torres walked to the central display and touched a control.
The map zoomed in on Earth's solar system.
The surviving human leadership made a difficult decision. They would establish a hidden colony on a primitive world in a remote sector of the galaxy.
This colony would be completely cut off from galactic civilization, allowed to develop naturally without any knowledge of their true heritage. If the devourers ever returned, this hidden population might be humanity's only hope for survival.
You're talking about Earth, Marcus breathed.
We're the descendants of refugees. More than that, Torres corrected. You are the descendants of the galaxy's greatest warriors and scientists.
The colonists sent to Earth were carefully selected for their genetic diversity and their potential for future development.
Every human alive today carries the genetic legacy of species from across the galaxy. The implications were staggering.
Marcus felt his worldview crashing down around him. Everything humanity thought they knew about themselves, their history, their place in the universe, was wrong.
Why now? Dr. Kim asked. Why are you telling us this now? Torres' expression became grim. because the Devourers are returning. Our deep space monitoring stations detected the first signs 6 months ago. They've found their way back to our galaxy, and they're heading for the core systems. The display showed a new image, current galactic maps with small red dots appearing at the galaxy's edge. As they watched, the dots began to move inward, following the same paths the ancient maps had marked as major shipping lanes. The species currently inhabiting the galaxy have no knowledge of the Devourers. They have no defenses prepared, no weapons capable of harming them. When the Devourers reach the core systems, the slaughter will be complete. What do you expect us to do about it? Elena demanded. We're just a salvage crew. We're not warriors. You are humans, Torres replied simply. And humans are the only species that has ever successfully fought the Devourers and won. The knowledge of how to fight them, the technology needed to harm them, it's all here on this ship. He gestured around the command center. The Prometheus was designed as more than just a warship. It's a repository of everything the cooperative learned about fighting the Devourers. Weapons, tactics, ship designs, even the genetic modifications that enhanced human reflexes and intuition to superhuman levels. Genetic modifications? Dr. Kim leaned forward intently. Every human from the old colonies underwent enhancement procedures that improved their physical and mental capabilities. These modifications were passed down genetically, but they've remained dormant in your Earthborn population. The awakening process requires specific environmental triggers that your world simply didn't provide. Torres touched another control, and the display showed detailed biological diagrams. However, exposure to the ship's quantum fields has already begun the awakening process in all of you. Within days, you'll begin to experience enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, and cognitive abilities that will seem almost supernatural compared to baseline humans. Marcus looked at his hands, trying to detect any changes. You're saying we're going to become super soldiers? You're going to become what humans were always meant to be, Torres corrected. What you were before Earth. The modifications are not artificial enhancements. They're the restoration of capabilities that were deliberately suppressed to allow your species to develop naturally. The weight of responsibility was crushing. Marcus had bought what he thought was scrap metal, and instead he'd uncovered the key to saving the galaxy. How long do we have before the Devourers reach the core systems? Based on their current rate of advance, approximately 18 months. But they're not the only threat you face. The display changed again, showing current galactic political maps. The species currently inhabiting the core systems have developed their own conflicts and power structures. They will not easily accept human leadership, especially when that leadership comes from a species they consider primitive and restricted to a single star system. Dr. Kim was studying the biological data with intense focus. Commander, these genetic modifications, how extensive are they? Comprehensive. Enhanced physical strength, speed, and endurance. Improved cognitive processing and pattern recognition. Heightened intuition that borders on precognition. And, perhaps most importantly, the ability to interface directly with cooperative technology through quantum neural links. You're talking about creating a master race, Elena said quietly. I'm talking about preparing humanity for a war that will determine whether civilization survives, Torres replied. The modifications will spread to other humans through genetic transfer, but the process will take generations. You four are the first, and you will need to make decisions that will affect the entire galaxy. As if to emphasize his point, the ship's light suddenly brightened, and Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. The quantum fields Torres had mentioned were clearly active, beginning the process that would change them at a fundamental level. The ship is already adapting to your presence, Torres observed. Within hours, you'll be able to access systems and information that would have been beyond baseline human comprehension. But, with that power comes responsibility. The Prometheus contains enough destructive capability to sterilize entire solar systems. In the wrong hands, it could be used to dominate rather than protect. Marcus looked at his team, seeing his own fears and uncertainties reflected in their faces. They were salvage workers, not galactic saviors. But, if Torres was telling the truth, they were also the descendants of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. "What do you need us to do?" he asked finally. Torres smiled for the first time since they'd met him. "First, you need to learn." The ship's databanks contain the entire knowledge base of the cooperative. Military tactics, scientific principles, technological specifications, and historical records of every species we've encountered. You'll need to absorb as much as possible before you return to human space. And, then? Then, you'll need to convince your leaders to prepare for war while simultaneously making contact with the current galactic powers. You'll need to reveal humanity's true nature and heritage, and you'll need to do it in a way that creates allies rather than enemies. The commander paused, his form flickering slightly as if the systems maintaining him were fluctuating. "But, most importantly, you'll need to find the other ships." "Other ships?" Dr. Kim looked up from her data. The Prometheus was not alone when it came to this sector. There were 12 vessels in our flotilla, each one carrying different aspects of cooperative technology and knowledge. They were scattered across this region of space and programmed to activate when humans reached sufficient technological development to find them. "You mean there are 11 more ships like this one?" Marcus felt his head spinning again. "Not like this one. Each ship was specialized for different purposes. There's a medical vessel containing advanced life extension and genetic therapy technology. A science ship with manufacturing capabilities that could build an entire fleet. A command vessel designed to coordinate multiple species in large-scale conflicts. And others." Torres brought up a new display showing the approximate locations of the other vessels. They were scattered across hundreds of light-years, hidden in asteroid fields, nebulae, and dead star systems. Finding them all will require resources and time that you may not have. But each ship you recover will multiply humanity's capabilities exponentially. With even half the flotilla, you could equip and train a force capable of holding off the Devourers long enough for the galaxy's other species to prepare their own defenses. The magnitude of what Torres was describing hit Marcus like a physical blow. They weren't just talking about saving humanity anymore. They were talking about rebuilding the greatest military alliance in galactic history, and doing it with a species that still thought they were alone in the universe. "How are we supposed to explain any of this to Earth Command?" Elena asked. "They'll think we're insane." "The ship's data banks contain complete records of human genetic lineages," Torres replied. "Every person currently alive on Earth can trace their ancestry back to specific colonies and even specific individuals from the original cooperative. You'll be able to provide proof that will be impossible to deny." He gestured around the command center. "More than that, you'll have working examples of technology that's thousands of years ahead of your current capabilities. Even the most skeptical officials won't be able to argue with functional quantum field manipulators and faster-than-light communication systems." As if responding to Torres' words, the command center's main console lit up with new displays. Marcus felt drawn to one of the stations, and, as his hands touched the controls, information began flowing directly into his mind. Ship schematics, tactical analyses, and strategic planning data that would have taken years to study normally were absorbed in minutes. "The enhancement process has begun," Torres observed. "Your minds are already adapting to process information at superhuman speeds. Within days, each of you will have access to knowledge that would make you the foremost experts in dozens of scientific and military fields." Dr. Kim was experiencing her own information download, her eyes wide with wonder as decades of research flowed through her consciousness. "This is incredible. I'm seeing technologies that could revolutionize everything from medicine to space travel." "And that's just the basic tutorial," Torres said with something that might have been amusement. "The full knowledge base contains the accumulated wisdom of 17 species over more than 10,000 years. But, even as Marcus marveled at the knowledge flowing into his mind, a disturbing thought occurred to him. "Commander, if humanity has this kind of capability, why did Earth develop the way it did? Why didn't the colonists use this technology?" Torres' expression became somber. "Because they were ordered not to. The Earth colony was established under strict non-interference protocols. The colonists underwent memory modification to remove all knowledge of their true heritage.
They were given only basic survival tools and the genetic potential for future development.
You deliberately kept us primitive, Elena accused. We kept you hidden, Torres corrected.
The Devourers have ways of detecting advanced civilizations. Quantum field emanations, subspace communication signatures, the specific energy patterns created by certain technologies. A primitive world with no advanced technology would be effectively invisible to them. But, now that we're advancing naturally, we're becoming visible anyway, Dr. Kim realized.
Exactly.
Your species has reached the threshold where hiding is no longer possible. Within the next century, human technology would have advanced to the point where the Devourers would have detected you regardless.
It was always the plan that humanity would eventually reclaim their heritage.
Torres walked to another console and activated a new display.
The timing is not coincidental. The Cooperative's long-range planning anticipated that the Devourers would return approximately 50,000 years after their first defeat.
The Earth colony was designed to reach technological maturity just in time to face this threat.
A 50,000-year plan, Marcus breathed. How could anyone plan that far ahead?
When you have allies who exist outside of linear time, long-term planning becomes considerably easier, Torres replied.
Though I should mention that the plan did include several contingencies that haven't been activated yet.
What kind of contingencies? Instead of answering directly, Torres activated another holographic display. This one showed what appeared to be a massive structure hidden in the outer reaches of the solar system, far beyond Pluto's orbit.
We call it the Prometheus Station. It's been dormant for 50,000 years, disguised as a small asteroid.
But, when activated, it becomes a manufacturing facility capable of producing an entire battle fleet in a matter of months. The scale of the secret infrastructure was staggering. Marcus realized that humanity hadn't just been hiding on Earth. They'd been surrounded by dormant technology, waiting for the right moment to awaken.
How much more is there? Elena asked quietly.
Enough, Torres replied simply.
The question is whether you're prepared to use it.
As the enhancement process continued, Marcus found himself seeing this situation from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Strategic analyses, tactical considerations, and political implications all processed in parallel.
It was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time.
But, with the enhanced cognition came a troubling realization.
The Devourers weren't just a military threat. They represented something far more fundamental and terrifying.
They were entropy itself, given form and consciousness, seeking to return the universe to a state of perfect emptiness. And humanity, with all their enhanced capabilities and ancient technology, might still not be enough to stop them. The changes began 3 days after their first encounter with Commander Torres. Marcus woke up in his temporary quarters aboard the Prometheus feeling as if someone had rewired his entire nervous system overnight. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds carried additional layers of meaning, and he could process information at speeds that should have been impossible. Elena, are you experiencing this too? He called through the calm system. If by this you mean feeling like I can calculate orbital mechanics in my head while simultaneously analyzing the molecular composition of the air I'm breathing, then, yes, came her reply. It's incredible and terrifying at the same time.
Dr. Kim had been monitoring their biological changes since the enhancement process began.
Your brain activity is off the charts, she reported as they gathered in the ship's medical bay.
Neural pathway formation is occurring at rates that would normally take years.
Your reflexes have improved by a factor of 5, and your cognitive processing speed is increasing exponentially.
What about you, Jake? Marcus asked.
His partner had been unusually quiet since returning from the command module. I've been running ship diagnostics, Jake replied, his eyes unfocused as if he was seeing multiple data streams simultaneously. Marcus, I'm reading gravitational fluctuations throughout this entire star system.
There are massive objects moving in ways that don't match any known orbital mechanics.
Commander Torres materialized beside them, his quantum form more stable than it had been during their first meeting. Your enhanced perception is allowing you to detect the other vessels in the flotilla. They're beginning to respond to the Prometheus's awakening signal. The medical bay's displays activated, showing sensor readings from across the Kepler system. As Jake had indicated, there were indeed gravitational anomalies appearing throughout the region. Asteroids were shifting position, dead comets were changing course, and what had appeared to be empty space was revealing the signatures of massive hidden objects.
11 ships, Marcus realized, watching the patterns emerge. They've all been here, waiting.
Not just waiting, Torres corrected.
Preparing.
Each vessel has spent the last 50,000 years gathering resources and constructing additional components. What you're detecting are not just ships, but entire mobile manufacturing complexes.
Elena was studying the sensor data with her enhanced analytical capabilities.
The gravitational signatures suggest these ships are enormous. Some of them appear to be larger than Earth's moon.
The medical vessel TDS Asclepius is indeed moon-sized, Torres confirmed.
It contains complete genetic libraries for every species that was part of the cooperative, along with the technology to recreate entire ecosystems.
The manufacturing ship TDS Hephaestus is even larger, designed to construct vessels and habitats for entire civilizations. Dr. Kim looked up from her biological scans with excitement. Commander, the genetic modifications you mentioned, they're not just enhancing our existing capabilities. They're unlocking entirely new sensory modalities. I'm detecting quantum fields, subspace fluctuations, things that shouldn't be perceivable by biological organisms.
The cooperative learned that consciousness itself is quantum in nature, Torres explained. The enhancements allow you to perceive reality at multiple dimensional levels simultaneously.
With proper training, you'll be able to interact with spacetime as easily as you currently manipulate electromagnetic fields.
To demonstrate his point, Torres gestured toward the medical bay's main console. Instead of touching the controls, he simply focused his attention on them, and the displays responded as if to physical commands.
Direct neural interface with quantum systems.
It's one of the primary advantages that allowed humanity and our allies to fight the Devourers effectively. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation as his enhanced nervous system began to resonate with the ship's quantum fields. Without consciously trying, he found himself accessing the Prometheus's navigation systems, seeing the positions of all 11 vessels in the flotilla as clearly as if they were displayed on a screen.
This is incredible, he breathed. I can sense the other ships. I can feel their systems coming online.
The flotilla is awakening in response to your presence, Torres confirmed.
Each ship has been monitoring this region of space for signs of human development. Your arrival here triggered a cascade activation protocol that will bring the entire force online within days.
But, even as Marcus marveled at his expanding capabilities, he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The enhancements were changing him at a fundamental level, altering not just his perceptions but his entire relationship with reality.
He was becoming something more than human, but was he still human at all? Elena seemed to be wrestling with similar concerns. Commander, these modifications, are they reversible? Why would you want to reverse them? Torres asked, genuinely puzzled. You're becoming what humanity was always meant to be.
The genetic potential has always been there, waiting for the right conditions to express itself. But we're changing into something our own species won't recognize, Elena protested.
How are we supposed to integrate with normal human society when we can process information 1,000 times faster than they can? By leading them through the transition, Torres replied simply.
The genetic modifications will spread through your population naturally, but the process can be accelerated through medical intervention.
Within a generation, all of humanity could possess these enhanced capabilities.
Dr. Kim was monitoring their conversation while simultaneously analyzing genetic data from the ship's medical systems.
The implications are staggering.
These modifications don't just enhance individual capabilities, they allow for direct mind-to-mind communication through quantum field manipulation. We could be looking at the emergence of a true collective consciousness. The cooperative functioned on exactly that principle, Torres confirmed. 17 different species, all linked through quantum neural networks, sharing knowledge and coordinating actions across galactic distances instantaneously. Jake's voice carried a note of concern as he continued to monitor the awakening ships.
That's all well and good, but
we've got more immediate problems. I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the flotilla. Whatever these ships are doing, it's generating enough power to be visible from the next star system." Torres nodded grimly. "The ships are entering active defense mode. Our long-range sensors have detected the first Devourer scout ships entering the galaxy's outer rim. They're still months away from reaching inhabited systems, but the automated defense protocols are responding to their presence." The medical bay's displays shifted to show deep space sensor readings. At first, Marcus saw nothing unusual, but, as his enhanced perception adapted to the scale, he began to detect signatures that made his blood run cold. The Devourer ships appeared as holes in spacetime itself, regions where matter and energy simply ceased to exist. "They're bigger than before," Torres observed with concern. "Much bigger. During the First War, their largest vessels were perhaps 10 kilometers in length. These new ships appear to be several hundred kilometers long." "How is that possible?" Elena asked. "How could they have grown so much in 50,000 years?" "By consuming everything they encountered while crossing the void between galaxies," Torres replied. "The Devourers feed on quantum energy, converting matter into pure entropy. Every star system they destroyed, every civilization they consumed, added to their mass and capabilities." Dr. Kim was running calculations at superhuman speed. If they've been growing continuously for 50,000 years, their current capabilities could exceed anything the original cooperative faced by several orders of magnitude. The weight of the situation was crushing. Even with their enhanced abilities and the technology of the flotilla, they were facing an enemy that had become exponentially more powerful since their last defeat. "Commander," Marcus said quietly, "do we actually have a chance of stopping them?" Torres was silent for a long moment. "Unknown. The original cooperative developed new technologies and strategies that the Devourers hadn't encountered before. Our advantage lay in innovation and adaptation. But they've now had 50,000 years to analyze our tactics and develop countermeasures. So we need something they haven't seen before," Elena realized. "Exactly. And that's where Earth's isolated development becomes crucial. Your species has spent 50,000 years developing along completely different technological and cultural lines than the original cooperative. You've created innovations that didn't exist in the previous war." Jake looked up from his sensor readings. "What kind of innovations?" "Artificial intelligence, for one," Torres replied. "The cooperative relied on biological and quantum consciousness interfaces. Your species has developed machine intelligence that operates on completely different principles. The Devourers have never encountered synthetic minds." Dr. Kim's eyes widened as the implications hit her. "Our computer technology could be immune to their consciousness disruption attacks." "Potentially. But, more importantly, the combination of enhanced human intuition and artificial intelligence processing power could create capabilities that neither the Devourers nor the original cooperative ever imagined." As if responding to their conversation, the Prometheus's computer systems began displaying new information. Technical specifications for hybrid human-AI interfaces, designs for ships that combined biological and synthetic components, and tactical analyses that incorporated both quantum consciousness manipulation and digital information processing. "The ship systems are already beginning to integrate Earth technological concepts," Torres observed. "Your mere presence here has allowed the Prometheus to analyze and incorporate 40,000 years of independent human development." Marcus felt the ship's knowledge systems interfacing directly with his enhanced mind, downloading information about fusion reactors, quantum computers, genetic engineering, and dozens of other technologies that the isolated Earth colony had developed. But, more than that, he began to understand how these technologies could be combined with cooperative science to create something entirely new. "We're not just going to fight the Devourers with old weapons," he realized. "We're going to fight them with weapons they can't possibly have prepared for." "That's the theory," Torres agreed. "But, first, you'll need to convince your species to accept the truth about their heritage and prepare for war. And you'll need to do it quickly." The medical bay's alarm suddenly activated, and Dr. Kim looked up from her scans with alarm. "Commander, I'm reading massive biological changes in all of us."
The enhancement process is accelerating beyond normal parameters. Torres' expression became concerned. That shouldn't be happening.
The modifications are designed to proceed gradually over several weeks.
Jake's sensor readings provided the answer. The other ships are interfacing with the Prometheus.
They're sharing processing power and quantum field generation.
The enhanced environment is triggering rapid genetic expression. Elena was the first to understand the implications. We're changing too fast. At this rate, we won't be able to function in normal human society at all. And that's assuming we survive the process, Dr. Kim added grimly.
The human nervous system wasn't designed to handle this level of enhancement in such a short time frame. Marcus felt the changes accelerating through his body. His perception was expanding exponentially, allowing him to sense quantum fluctuations across the entire star system. But, with the enhanced awareness came a growing disconnection from his baseline human perspective.
Torres, can you slow down the process?
I'm trying, but the flotilla's awakening is generating a quantum resonance cascade. The ships are responding to the presence of enhanced humans by increasing their own output, which further accelerates your modifications. The situation was spiraling out of control. They were caught in a feedback loop where their enhancements triggered greater ship responses, which in turn drove even more rapid changes.
At this rate, they would either transcend humanity entirely or die from neural overload.
But, as Marcus struggled to maintain his sense of self amid the cascading changes, he began to perceive something else.
The quantum fields generated by the flotilla weren't just enhancing their individual capabilities. They were creating connections between all four of them, linking their consciousness into a shared network.
I can feel your thoughts, Elena whispered, her voice carrying overtones that hadn't been there before.
The collective consciousness protocol is activating, Torres realized with amazement.
You're becoming the first members of a new cooperative. Dr. Kim's enhanced medical knowledge allowed her to understand what was happening at the cellular level.
The modifications aren't just enhancing us individually. They're preparing us to function as components of a larger organism.
Through their shared consciousness, they could feel the vast network of the flotilla's computer systems, the awakening artificial intelligences, and something else. Other minds, ancient and patient, that had been waiting in the quantum substrate of spacetime itself. The original cooperative members, Jake breathed as he made contact with intelligences that had survived for 50,000 years as pure consciousness. They're still here. The medical bay filled with new quantum forms as the preserved minds of the cooperative's greatest leaders materialized around them. Beings from 17 different species, their consciousness translated into forms that enhanced human minds could perceive and interact with. "Welcome, children of Earth," spoke a figure that appeared as flowing geometric patterns.
"We have been waiting for you to join us."
Marcus felt his individual identity expanding to encompass perspectives from across the galaxy and throughout history. The knowledge of 17 civilizations flowed through the shared network, along with strategies and technologies that had been refined over millennia. But, most importantly, he gained access to the true scope of the Devourer threat. Through the collective consciousness of the ancient cooperative, he could see the enemy's current capabilities and the devastating progress they were making across the galaxy's outer rim. "We don't have months," he realized with horror.
The Devourers have developed faster-than-light consumption techniques.
They're moving through star systems at relativistic speeds, consuming entire sectors in days rather than years.
The ancient minds in the network shared his alarm.
The enemy had evolved beyond their worst projections, developing capabilities that made the original war look like a mere skirmish.
"Then, we accelerate the awakening," declared one of the preserved consciousnesses. "All flotilla vessels to full activation. Begin immediate construction of the warfleet."
Through the quantum network, Marcus felt the 11 ships of the flotilla coming fully online simultaneously. Manufacturing systems that had been dormant for millennia began producing weapons and vessels at incredible speeds.
Mining operations stripped entire asteroids for raw materials.
And communication arrays reached out across space to contact other hidden installations. But, even as the ancient war machine awakened, Marcus retained enough individual perspective to recognize the terrible irony of their situation. They had gained the power to save the galaxy, but, in doing so, they had ceased to be entirely human. The question was whether any vestige of their original humanity would survive the coming war, or if the price of victory would be the transformation of their entire species into something unrecognizably alien. As the collective consciousness continued to expand, incorporating more minds and capabilities, Marcus wondered if the distinction between savior and conqueror was about to become meaningless. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks using conventional faster-than-light drives, but it felt like centuries to Marcus and his enhanced companions. The collective consciousness network that connected them had stabilized, allowing them to function as individuals while maintaining access to the vast knowledge and capabilities of the ancient cooperative. But the challenge they faced was unprecedented: how to convince a species that thought it was alone in the universe that it was actually the galaxy's last hope for survival. Earth Control, this is salvage vessel Lucky Strike requesting priority landing clearance at Geneva Spaceport, Marcus transmitted as they approached Earth's orbital traffic control network. Lucky Strike, you're 3 weeks overdue from your scheduled return. Please transmit cargo manifest and passenger status for customs processing. Marcus exchanged glances with his team. Through their shared consciousness, they could communicate without speaking, but the weight of what they had to reveal pressed on all of them. Earth Control, we're carrying cargo that requires immediate attention from the highest levels of government. This is not a normal customs situation. Lucky Strike, please clarify the nature of your cargo. Earth Control, we're carrying proof that humanity is not originally from Earth, technology that could revolutionize civilization, and intelligence about an imminent threat to the entire galaxy. I think you're going to want to get some very important people on the line. There was a long pause before a different voice came through the communication system. Lucky Strike, this is Director Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Intelligence. Please maintain your current orbit and prepare to receive a boarding party. Within hours, their ship was surrounded by military vessels, and Marcus found himself face-to-face with Director Chen in the Lucky Strike's cramped conference room. She was a tall, stern woman in her 50s who clearly didn't appreciate having her day disrupted by what she probably considered a group of delusional salvagers. Mr. Chen, she began, you've made some rather extraordinary claims. My analysis team has examined your ship and found no evidence of alien technology or unusual cargo. That's because the important cargo isn't on this ship, Dr. Kim replied. It's hidden in the Kepler system, and it's larger than most space stations. Director Chen's expression remained skeptical. I'm going to need more than vague claims about hidden alien technology. If you found something significant, provide evidence. Marcus had anticipated this reaction. Through his enhanced capabilities, he reached out to the quantum communication array they'd installed on their ship before leaving the Prometheus. Across the light years, the ancient vessel responded to his mental command. The conference room's displays activated without anyone touching them, showing real-time images from the Kepler system. The massive shapes of the awakening flotilla filled the screens, ships the size of cities emerging from their hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. Director, Marcus said quietly, I'd like to introduce you to humanity's true heritage. The next several hours were a blur of emergency meetings, frantic consultations, and increasingly high-level officials being dragged into what had started as a routine customs inspection. By evening, Marcus and his team found themselves in an underground conference facility in Geneva, facing a room full of Earth's most powerful leaders. President Sarah Martinez sat at the head of the table, her expression grim as she reviewed the data they'd presented. Around her were the heads of major governments, military leaders, and the planet's top scientists. The atmosphere was tense with disbelief and growing alarm. Dr. Kim, President Martinez said finally, your biological analysis of these modifications you claim to have undergone. You're telling us that every human on Earth carries dormant genetic sequences from alien species? Not alien, Dr. Kim corrected. Allied. Humanity was part of an interspecies cooperative that spanned the galaxy. The genetic modifications represent enhancements developed through collaboration with 17 different civilizations. General Harrison, head of the Terran Defense Force, leaned forward aggressively. And you're claiming that in 3 weeks, you've somehow activated these modifications and gained superhuman capabilities? Elena demonstrated by accessing the room's computer systems through direct neural interface, causing data to flow across the screens without touching any controls. The capabilities are real, General.
And they're going to be necessary if we want to survive what's coming. The holographic display shifted to show the deep space sensor readings from the flotilla.
The approaching Devourer ships appeared as voids in spacetime, consuming everything in their path as they advanced toward the galaxy's core systems. "This is insane," muttered Secretary of Science Dr. Robert Walsh. "You're asking us to believe in ancient alien conspiracies and galaxy-ending monsters based on the word of 4 people who claim to have become psychic."
Marcus felt his patience wearing thin.
Through the collective consciousness network, he could sense the growing urgency of the situation. The Devourers were moving faster than predicted, and every moment of delay meant more systems would fall. "Secretary Walsh," he said, his enhanced voice carrying harmonic frequencies that compelled attention, "we're not asking you to believe anything.
We're offering you the chance to verify everything yourself."
Without waiting for permission, Marcus reached out through the quantum communication network to the Prometheus station hidden in Earth's outer solar system. The massive facility, dormant for 50,000 years, began to awaken.
Throughout the solar system, gravitational sensors detected the sudden appearance of an artificial structure larger than Earth's moon.
Radio telescopes picked up energy signatures that defied conventional physics. And deep space monitoring stations watched in amazement as the hidden station began deploying manufacturing complexes and defensive arrays. "My God," whispered Dr. Walsh as the display showed real-time footage of the awakening station.
"It's been there all along."
"Hidden just beyond Pluto's orbit," Marcus confirmed. "Along with enough manufacturing capability to build a fleet that could defend entire star systems. But we need your cooperation to activate it fully."
President Martinez stood slowly, her political instincts warring with the overwhelming evidence before her. "What exactly are you asking us to do?"
3 things, Elena replied, her enhanced consciousness interfacing with multiple data streams simultaneously. "First, we need you to authorize global genetic screening to identify individuals with the highest potential for enhancement. Second, we need access to Earth's entire industrial base to begin building hybrid human AI warships. Third, we need you to prepare your population for first contact with the galactic community."
First contact?
General Harrison's military mind immediately grasped the implications.
"You're talking about revealing the existence of alien civilizations to 8 billion people."
"We're talking about revealing that humanity is about to take its place as the galaxy's primary defense force," Dr. Kim corrected. "The current galactic civilizations are relatively young and lack the technological base to fight the Devourers effectively. They'll need human leadership and cooperative technology to survive." The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed the magnitude of what was being proposed. Earth was being asked to transition from an isolated world to the center of a galactic war effort, all based on the claims of 4 enhanced humans and evidence that challenged everything they thought they knew about reality. Director Chen, who had been quietly analyzing the data, finally spoke up.
"The genetic evidence is undeniable.
I've confirmed that every person in this room carries the dormant sequences you described. The question is whether we're prepared for the consequences of activating them." Through the collective consciousness, Marcus could sense the thoughts and concerns of his companions.
Elena worried about losing their humanity in the enhancement process. Dr.
Kim was fascinated by the scientific implications but concerned about the social disruption. Jake focused on the practical challenges of integrating cooperative technology with human infrastructure. But overriding all their individual concerns was a shared awareness of the Devourer threat. Through the quantum network, they could perceive the advancing enemy ships, the civilizations falling before them, and the growing urgency of the situation. "President Martinez," Marcus said, allowing some of the collective consciousness's urgency to color his voice, "you have approximately 6 hours to make your decision."
6 hours?
"I thought you said we had months before the Devourers reached inhabited systems."
"We do.
But we've just received intelligence that they've detected the activation of the flotilla. They're accelerating their advance toward this sector of the galaxy. If we don't begin preparations immediately, Earth will be their primary target." The displays shifted to show updated Devourer movement patterns. The enemy ships were indeed changing course, their attention drawn by the quantum signatures of the awakening cooperative technology. General Harrison stood up abruptly.
Are you telling us that your actions have made Earth a target? Our actions have made Earth a threat, Elena corrected. The Devourers eliminate any civilization capable of opposing them. By awakening the flotilla, we've announced that humanity is no longer hiding. Dr. Walsh was frantically analyzing the enemy movement data.
Based on their new trajectory and speed, they'll reach the outer solar system in approximately 14 months. 14 months to prepare for a war against an enemy that destroyed the greatest civilization in galactic history, President Martinez said quietly.
How are we supposed to accomplish that?
By becoming greater than the civilization that fell before them, Marcus replied. The original cooperative was limited by the individual capabilities of its member species. But humanity has something they didn't have, the ability to enhance themselves without losing their essential nature. Through the quantum network, Marcus shared his vision of enhanced humanity with the room's leaders. A species that retained its creativity, adaptability, and determination while gaining capabilities that bordered on godlike. Humans who could think at superhuman speeds while maintaining their emotional connections to each other and their values. The genetic modifications don't make us inhuman, Dr. Kim added, supporting Marcus's argument with her medical expertise.
They make us fully human. They activate potential that's been dormant for 50,000 years. And if we refuse? President Martinez asked.
Then, humanity remains hidden on Earth while the rest of the galaxy falls to the Devourers, Elena replied bluntly. Eventually, they'll find us anyway, and we'll face them alone and unprepared. The weight of the decision pressed down on the room like a physical force. The leaders of humanity were being asked to gamble their entire species on the word of 4 people who claimed to represent ancient alien allies and technologies that shouldn't exist. But the evidence was impossible to ignore. The awakening station in the outer solar system was already beginning to deploy fleets of automated construction vessels. The sensor readings from the Kepler system showed a military force beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. And the approaching Devourer ships represented a threat that made every previous human conflict seem trivial by comparison. President Martinez looked around the room, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in every face. Finally, she turned back to Marcus and his team. If we agree to this, what happens to us? What happens to human civilization as we know it? It evolves, Marcus replied simply.
Into something greater than it ever could have been alone. The choice isn't between remaining human or becoming something else.
The choice is between growing into our full potential or dying as incomplete beings. Through the collective consciousness, he shared a glimpse of what humanity could become. A species that spanned the galaxy, working in harmony with dozens of other civilizations, pushing the boundaries of science and philosophy while maintaining the essential qualities that made them human.
It was a vision of transcendence without loss of identity. Director Chen, President Martinez said finally, what's your assessment of the immediate risks if we proceed?
Unknown but manageable, Chen replied. The enhancement process appears to be reversible in its early stages, and the subjects show no signs of psychological instability or loss of human empathy.
The greater risk is in waiting too long to act.
General Harrison was studying the military implications with his enhanced tactical abilities. His own dormant enhancements had begun to activate simply through exposure to the quantum fields generated by Marcus's team.
From a strategic perspective, we have no choice.
Even if there was only a 10% chance that this threat is real, we'd have to prepare for it. But the evidence suggests the probability is much higher.
Then, we proceed, President Martinez declared.
But with safeguards. I want continuous monitoring of the enhancement process, independent verification of all claims about alien technology, and a detailed plan for managing the social and political implications of first contact. Marcus felt relief flow through the collective consciousness network. Humanity had chosen to reclaim its heritage and face its destiny. But even as the decision was made, he knew that the real challenges were just beginning.
Mr. President, he said, there's one more thing you should know. The enhancement process will begin automatically for anyone who spends extended time in proximity to cooperative technology.
Everyone in this room has already been exposed to quantum field modifications.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
The leaders of humanity were already beginning their own transformation, whether they had consented to it or not.
How long before we start experiencing the changes?
Dr. Walsh asked quietly. Based on your exposure levels, the first modification should become apparent within 48 hours, Dr. Kim replied. Enhanced reflexes, improved cognitive processing, and the beginning of quantum field sensitivity. President Martinez sat down heavily, the weight of leadership suddenly seeming even heavier. So the decision has already been made for us. The decision to expose you was made 50,000 years ago, Marcus corrected. The cooperative ensured that when humanity discovered its heritage, its leaders would be among the first to understand the full implications. As if to emphasize the point, the room's communication systems activated without input from anyone present. Images flowed across the display showing the Prometheus station beginning full-scale manufacturing operations, the flotilla ships deploying throughout the Kepler system, and deep space communication arrays reaching out to contact other hidden installations across the galaxy. The awakening had begun, and there was no turning back. Humanity was about to reclaim its place as the galaxy's defenders, but the price of that inheritance was the transformation of everything they thought they knew about themselves. Through the collective consciousness, Marcus could sense the mixed emotions of his companions and the newly exposed leaders. Fear and excitement, determination and uncertainty, hope and dread all flowed through the quantum network as humanity prepared to step out of its long isolation and into a galaxy at war. But beneath all the conflicting emotions was a growing sense of rightness, as if pieces of a vast puzzle were finally clicking into place. This was what they were meant to be. This was what they had always been meant to become. The only question now was whether they could become it fast enough to face the approaching darkness. 12 months later, Marcus Chin stood on the bridge of the TDS Resurrection, flagship of the new cooperative fleet, and watched as humanity's greatest gamble reached its culmination. The ship around him was a hybrid of technologies spanning 50,000 years, ancient cooperative quantum manipulation systems integrated with cutting-edge human artificial intelligence, weapons that could manipulate space-time itself powered by fusion reactors that shouldn't have been possible to build. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Commander Elena Rodriguez, her enhanced consciousness interfacing directly with the ship's battle management systems. The Devourer main fleet has entered the outer marker zone.
Estimated time to engagement, 4 hours. Through the quantum communication network that now linked every enhanced human in the fleet, Marcus could perceive the enemy formation with crystal clarity. 37 Devourer ships, each one larger than Earth's moon, approaching in a pattern that would have seemed random to normal human perception but which his enhanced tactical awareness recognized as a sophisticated multidimensional assault formation.
Jake, status on the Allied forces?
Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the engineering coordination vessel TDS Hephaestus, responded through the network.
83 ships from 14 different species, all equipped with cooperative enhanced weapons systems. They're as ready as they're ever going to be, but, Marcus, they're terrified.
That was understandable.
The galactic species that had answered humanity's call for alliance were young civilizations, most of them barely advanced enough for interstellar travel. They had joined the new cooperative because the alternative was extinction, but none of them had ever faced anything like the Devourers.
Dr. Kim, what's the status of the Enhancement Integration Program?
Dr. Sarah Kim, now serving as the fleet's xenobiology coordinator from her position aboard the medical vessel TDS Asclepius, shared her report through the collective consciousness. 14% of the Allied crews have successfully integrated basic enhancement modifications. It's not enough for full quantum consciousness interface, but it allows them to coordinate with our tactical systems.
14%. After 12 months of intensive effort, they had managed to enhance less than 1/6 of their alien allies.
The genetic modifications that came naturally to humans required extensive medical intervention for other species, and many were simply incompatible with the changes.
But it would have to be enough.
Admiral Chen, came a new voice through the communication system, speaking with the harmonic frequencies of the ancient cooperative members. The Preserved Consciousness Council wishes to address the fleet. Marcus nodded, opening his mind to the vast network of ancient intelligences that had survived for 50 millennia as pure quantum consciousness. Through them, he could perceive the true scope of the approaching battle, not just a fight for this solar system, but a confrontation that would determine the fate of all consciousness in the galaxy.
Fleet Commanders, this is Admiral Chen.
Stand by to receive priority communication from the Cooperative Council. The ancient voices spoke as one, their words transmitted directly to the consciousness of every enhanced being in the fleet.
Children of the new cooperative, you face today an enemy that has consumed galaxies.
The devourers before you have grown beyond anything we fought in the ancient war. But, you possess advantages we never had. Images flowed through the network, the hybrid ships of the human fleet, technologies that blended organic quantum manipulation with artificial intelligence processing power.
Weapons systems that could adapt their attack patterns faster than any biological mind could react.
And, most importantly, the enhanced human consciousness that could perceive and manipulate reality at levels the original cooperative had never achieved. The enemy expects to face the tactics and technologies of the ancient war. They have prepared countermeasures for every strategy we once employed. But, the human spirit, enhanced and unbound, is something they have never encountered. Marcus felt the truth of those words resonating through his enhanced awareness. Humanity had spent 50,000 years developing in isolation, creating technologies and approaches that had never existed during the original cooperative era. Their AI systems thought in ways that biological minds couldn't match, while their enhanced human consciousness could adapt and innovate at speeds that purely synthetic intelligence couldn't achieve. All ships, prepare for multidimensional combat engagement.
Remember, the Devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime. Standard weapons will have limited effect.
We need to use the quantum manipulation systems to force them fully into our dimensional framework before we can damage them significantly. The fleet moved into position with a coordination that would have been impossible without the quantum consciousness network. 120 ships from 15 different species, all linked through enhanced human minds that could process tactical information at superhuman speeds while maintaining the intuitive creativity that pure AI lacked.
Contact in 60 seconds, Elena reported. Enemy ships are beginning dimensional phase shifts.
Through the network, Marcus could perceive the Devourers beginning their attack. The massive ships started to fade from normal spacetime, becoming partially incorporeal entities that could pass through conventional matter while draining the quantum energy that held atoms together.
All ships, activate quantum anchoring fields.
Force them to maintain physical cohesion. The new cooperative fleet responded as one, their hybrid technology creating localized spacetime distortions that prevented the Devourers from shifting fully into their incorporeal state. It was a technique that hadn't existed during the ancient war, developed by combining human understanding of quantum mechanics with cooperative mastery of consciousness manipulation. The first exchange of fire lit up space with energies that should not have existed in normal reality. The Devourers launched attacks that tried to unravel the fundamental forces holding matter together, while the new cooperative ships responded with weapons that could manipulate the fabric of spacetime itself. Direct hit on the lead Devourer, Jake reported from his engineering vessel. But, it's adapting to our quantum disruption patterns. That was the enemy's greatest advantage, their ability to learn and adapt from every attack they encountered. The original cooperative had eventually lost because the Devourers had analyzed and developed counters to every weapon and tactic they employed. But, Marcus had prepared for this.
All ships, implement adaptive randomization protocol. Let the AI systems vary our attack patterns faster than the enemy can analyze them.
The human fleet began operating in a way that would have been impossible for any previous civilization. Their artificial intelligence systems generated millions of tactical variations per second, while the enhanced human consciousness provided the creative leaps and intuitive insights needed to develop entirely new approaches in real time. The Devourers are confused, Elena reported with amazement. They're trying to adapt to our attack patterns, but we're changing them faster than they can process. Through the quantum network, Marcus could perceive the enemy's growing frustration. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers were facing opponents who could out-evolve them in real time.
But, the battle was far from won.
Even with their technological advantages, the new cooperative fleet was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Each Devourer ship was powerful enough to destroy entire solar systems, and they had spent 50,000 years growing even stronger. "Admiral," came an urgent report from one of the Allied species commanders, "we're losing ships. The smaller vessels can't withstand direct hits from the enemy's primary weapons." Marcus made a decision that would have been impossible without his enhanced consciousness. Through the quantum network, he began coordinating the actions of every ship in the fleet simultaneously, turning the entire force into a single vast organism with himself as the central nervous system. All vessels implement distributed consciousness protocol. Full neural integration with the flagship. What happened next had never been attempted in galactic history. 120 ships, crewed by beings from 15 different species, became extensions of Marcus's enhanced mind. Through the quantum consciousness network, he could perceive through their sensors, think with their computers, and coordinate their actions with precision that exceeded anything biological or artificial minds could achieve independently. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and devastating. The new cooperative fleet began moving and fighting as a single entity, anticipating the enemy's attacks and responding with perfectly coordinated counterstrikes that exploited microscopic weaknesses in their defenses. "Impossible," transmitted one of the ancient cooperative consciousnesses. "You're achieving tactical coordination levels that shouldn't be possible for any biological mind." "That's because we're not just biological anymore," Marcus replied through the network. "We're something new." The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Devourer's massive size and power were balanced against the new cooperative's superior coordination and adaptability. Ships were lost on both sides, but, gradually, the enhanced humans began to gain ground. "Admiral," Elena reported, her voice tight with effort as she helped coordinate the distributed consciousness, "I'm reading massive energy buildups in the enemy rear formation. They're preparing something big." Through the quantum network, Marcus could perceive the Devourer's final gambit. They were combining their remaining ships into a single massive entity, creating a localized spacetime distortion that could consume the entire solar system. "They're going to try to devour the sun," Dr. Kim realized with horror. "If they succeed, they'll gain enough energy to become unstoppable." Marcus felt the weight of the entire galaxy's fate pressing down on him. Every decision he made through the distributed consciousness network affected not just this battle, but the survival of consciousness itself throughout the universe. All ships, Emergency Protocol Omega. Full quantum consciousness merger. "Marcus, that's never been tested," Jake warned. "The risk of permanent neural integration is less than the risk of letting them succeed," Marcus finished. "Do it." What happened next transformed the new cooperative fleet into something that had never existed before. Not just enhanced humans coordinating with artificial intelligence, but a true merger of biological creativity, synthetic processing power, and quantum consciousness manipulation. Marcus felt his individual identity expanding to encompass the minds of every being in the fleet. Humans, aliens, artificial intelligences, and ancient preserved consciousnesses all merged into a single vast intelligence that could think and act on galactic scales. The merged consciousness reached out across spacetime itself, grasping the fundamental forces that held reality together and turning them against the Devourers. For the first time in their existence, the entropy beings found themselves facing an opponent that could manipulate the very concepts of order and chaos. "You cannot exist," the merged consciousness spoke with the voice of 100 species. "You are antithetical to the nature of reality itself." The battle's climax lasted only seconds but involved energies and forces that rewrote the laws of physics in the local spacetime region. When it was over, the Devourer fleet had simply ceased to exist, their matter and energy returned to the quantum foam from which all things emerged. In the aftermath, as the merged consciousness slowly separated back into individual minds, Marcus found himself back on the bridge of the resurrection, his enhanced awareness still reeling from the experience of transcendent union. "Status report," he requested weakly. "All Devourer ships destroyed," Elena reported, her own consciousness struggling to readjust to individual existence. "Allied fleet casualties are surprisingly light, considering the scope of the engagement." Through the quantum network, messages began flowing in.